So you're thinking about making the move to the Sacramento area. Does buying a house in 2024 make sense? Should you wait? Should you buy right away? We're going to talk a little bit about this right now. Let's get into it. So let's get to it. It's 2024. You're thinking about moving to the Sacramento area. I got Aaron, mortgage broker. Is it a smart move, or are you going to lose your proverbial shirt? What do you think, Aaron? What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, obviously nobody knows what's going to happen in the future, but let's, look at the past and look at the data to, kind of get an idea of what might happen in the future, right? And there's a whole bunch of things that play a role in, whether or not home prices are going to go up and down. But the basics are just your fundamental supply and demand, right? And there's a lot of different things. Like I took some notes down and, like, for instance, rates are not coming down. And, I know that there's a reinvigorated, kind of conversation talking about how, in September, the Fed's going to cut the Fed funds rate finally. Well, first of all, the Fed does not control mortgage interest rates. Inflation does, the 10-year bond does. And so there's no guarantee that the Fed even cutting a quarter point off of the Fed funds rate is going to even do anything to mortgage rates. But even if it were, we need a significant amount of movement. We're talking hundreds of basis points. I mean, like 5, 6, 7, 800 basis points, which is unfathomable in terms of movement, in order to get interest rates down to 5, 4, some sort of percentage range that most buyers would get excited about, be able to afford more. So, I mean, we haven't even seen that. So you've got all these people that are kind of like trapped, where they're either not deciding to become homeowners because they're waiting for rates to come down, or they already own a house and they want to move somewhere else or upgrade, but the cost difference is crazy, So that's just one thing. What do you think about that?
It's interesting, right? So 2024 has shown a lot of different things. Like, new homes have been crazy, inventory is low, interest rates, we've been playing the dance of the sevens kind of almost all year, so it's an interesting thing. So do you end up saying to yourself, even though inventory is low, interest rates are relatively where they're going to be, new homes are offering incentives still, they've kind of started even more offering incentives, is this where I should buy? I mean, it doesn't make sense. Now, this is my opinion on it. Take it as you will. If you're a 2 to 3 year buyer, you could be hurting a little bit. And I don't mean like losing money, but it could be flatlining. I think our market, for the most part, is going to be a little flat, maybe a little appreciation, but I think we're going to be flat for a little bit, right? So if you're a 2 to 3 year buyer, considering you're going to be paying fees and all this stuff when you go to sell your house, short-term play, I don't like this market specifically for that, unless you're a flipper and you see some really good, distressed properties or something like that. If you're a long-term buyer and you're looking for your primary, of course, time your life, not the market, 5 to 7 years, I think I like our market. I think Sacramento is growing, thriving. I think we have new communities popping, new schools going, companies coming in. I love our growth. I love our job situation with state jobs, with tech jobs, with medical. I like our jobs situation too. Now that we're in an election year and we're coming into, that stuff, it always behooves you to be in a market that's as stable as it possibly can be. Our market, if you're hedging your bets, is a great market to be that. If you're looking for the California lifestyle, if you're looking for the bang for your buck, I do like the Sacramento area for the long play. For the 2 to 3 year play, it's a little dicey. What do you think about that, Aaron?
Oh, I totally agree with that. If you look at the S&P, or not the S&P, the Case-Shiller index, okay, which is like the gold standard for measuring U.S. home price appreciation. If you look at the last 81 years, not the last 5 years, not the last 10, the last 81 years, there's literally only been 7 years where we actually saw home prices come down. And in a few of those years where they came down, they only came down like 1%. Like in 1990 and 1991, 90 was a flat year, 91 they lost 1%. And then you got to go all the way into the mid 2000s, where you have like 2007, 8, 9, and 10, where you actually had some home price depreciation. but that was caused by over speculation in the market, a lot of loose lending standards, all those things that haven't existed since the Dodd-Frank Act, and when everybody kind of wisened up to not doing those things. So I mean, if you look at the last 81 years, literally, almost over 90% of the time, home prices go up, and on average they go up 5.37% per year. So if you're playing the long game, which most people, when they buy a house to live in, they're going to stay there for somewhere between 7 to 10 years based off of, statistics. If you're playing the long game, then I don't see how you can lose with real estate. However, like you said, Mark, if you're like going to flip this thing in a year from now or 2 years, or, you got a short timeline, unless you're a professional property flipper, and you're buying some, place that's held together with spit and termite wings, and you're, flipping the house into something beautiful and making a profit from that, you're going to lose your rear end when it comes time to sell, most likely, mainly because of the costs that are associated with selling a property. Like, let's just pretend that you bought a property today and you had to sell it a year from today. Well, it's going to cost you somewhere between like 6 to maybe 8% after you pay real estate fees, closing costs, maybe some buyer concessions, depending on where your home's located and the market sentiment, all that stuff, right? So, if you're looking at 6 to 8% and the average home price appreciation is, call it mid fives, well, you're going to need to be in it for at least probably a year and a half to 2 years to just break even on it, right? So the short play, definitely, you shouldn't be speculative with prices, but long term, I think that there's a many reasons to believe that home prices are going to continue to rise. Mainly just like I said in the beginning, the fundamentals of supply and demand. For instance, depending on who's, presenting the data, you'll see on the low end, 4.5 million units, and on the high end up to around 9 million units that we are short, meaning that they don't exist, homes that do not exist, yet we have the households, the people in our country that need somewhere to live. So we're anywhere between like 4.5 to 9 million homes short. Yet this year, 1.4 million people will turn 33 years old, which is the average age of a first-time home buyer. Home builders barely crank out that many units, and we have to destroy somewhere around 900,000 units a year because the homes just get too old and, they need to be knocked down and something new put up. So we're in this constant deficit in housing, and I don't see a way out of it because builders aren't building more houses. It doesn't make sense for them to do it between land restrictions and just there's way more profit in building expensive homes versus a bunch of cheap homes that people could actually afford. So it's like there's just so many things working against the narrative of home prices going down, that I don't see how you could go wrong as long as you've got enough time. Versus like if you were comparing it to the stock market or something, well, who knows what the future of some company is, or whatever the future price of a stock is based off of that. So I feel like you can't go wrong with real estate if you got time.
All right. So here's a big question I think a lot of people are throwing to themselves. Could it get any worse? I mean, why not just wait a little bit? You're in a good rental situation. You're busting at the seams, but you can deal with it for a couple more years. Like, why? Where's that urgency that normally a lot of people feel? Like, a lot of people I think that I talk to are like, we're in no rush. We're in sevens. There's low inventory. Election year's here. Like, what's, all these realtors are like, you got to buy. You got to do this. You got to go crazy. And it's like, they're like, do we really though? I mean, do we really have to buy this moment? And I think that's one of the things that like a lot of people, because here's the thing, you live by the sword and you die by the sword. So a lot of people I think are trying to focus on the idea that like, like what we always say in this channel, like time your life, not the market. Everyone's kind of trying to focus it more on the market instead of your life. And so now when all of a sudden, the market isn't great, they're kind of like, oh, well, I mean, you should buy because that's when you should buy, and you just buy. And they're kind of like left in kind of this weird kind of state of like, there's no justification to really pull the trigger right now. And so for us, we're always saying like, time your life, don't time the market. If you're having another kid, if you're thinking about maybe this or that, the other thing, or if you're moving to Sacramento, good. Go for the buy. Go for it. It makes sense. But if you time the market, as we're seeing right now, I think a lot of realtors are like kind of like going like, well, there's not a whole lot of sell here. There's not a sell of like, you need to jump out there right now. So I don't know. I mean, the only thing that I'm seeing right now is the idea that like a lot of inventory is kind of sitting. But then it gets me to a weird thing also. I say to myself, like, is it just incorrect pricing, or is it things that are sitting there at a good price? And I think that that's really where you need a good realtor, not a realtor that's going to tell you like, oh my God, that thing is sitting. Oh my God, it's been there for 2 months. Let's go in, like, let's get it. Let's pick it up. Go list. We're good. And maybe you can get it for like $50,000 less. And I think that that's one of the things that a lot of people are confused about is the idea. And that's maybe the only sell the realtors have at this moment where they say like, oh, things are sitting. But what does that pricing look like? Is that good pricing? Is it like, oh my God, someone was at 2.75 is just saying to themselves, if I get $1 million for my house that's worth maybe 850, I'll take it. And so now a house at $1 million has been sitting for 3 months, and all of a sudden someone who's new to our market looks at it and goes, wow, it's been sitting. Maybe I can get it for like 950. Sure, you can get it for 950, but it's pretty much worth like 850. So you're not really winning. So I think that that's kind of one of the things that I'm seeing in our market specifically. The other thing too is area specific. I think area is, in this type of market that we're in right now, area specific. You've got to go to historical data. You've got to see those areas that have been shown appreciation, growth, and the new areas, you've got to go to development plans. You've got to go to some of these plans that you see, they're developing new malls, new schools and everything too. You've got to be a little bit more educated before you pull the trigger like on a house. You've got to know the area. Location is another thing that's absolutely key, especially in a market like Sacramento that has growth. Where is this growth? What are the guarantees 100% these things are happening in my area that all the new home sales people are telling us that it's going to happen? And that's kind of one of the things that's kind of interesting in the market. What do you think as far as area specific in our Sacramento market, Aaron?
Oh, that totally plays a huge role. So here's an example. If you go on the MLS right now and you look at like the local 13 counties, which I know local, you're thinking, well, Bay Area, Central Valley, Sacramento Valley. If you kind of look at like the major Northern California, housing market, there's about 2.3 months of supply, meaning that if like no more homes were listed today, and homes kept selling at the pace that they're selling, that all the homes would run out in 2.3 months. That's what that means. Well, a buyer's market is defined as having 9 months of supply. A healthy market is like 6 months of supply. A seller's market is where we've been living for like over a decade, it seems like, where you've got, only a few months of supply. And so if you look at, like, for instance, Folsom, which is a very popular area, there's only 1.6 months of supply. If you look at 95758 in Elk Grove, which is super popular, especially with new homes and all that stuff, you've got 1.4 months of supply. So my point being is that in areas where everybody else wants to be, there's even less homes available. And often the data that you're hearing in the media and the news, that's national data. That's usually it's like an average up compared to, like, most of you watching this, you live in the greater Sacramento market or you're thinking about moving here. Sacramento is a much more popular housing market than many other of the national markets. And so our numbers are appreciation significantly higher. Our inventory significantly lower, days on market lower, all the, the little metrics that basically kind of determine our price is going to go up or go down. So locality definitely plays a big role. To speak to what you said about, is the listings with the home sitting? Is it because the seller, is crazy? And I as somebody that, looks at home prices all the time in all of our local markets, I'm constantly on the MLS. And I will say that I think that there is an abundance of listings where the listing agent should have never taken the listing, but instead of putting their foot down and saying, no, Mr. Seller, your house is only worth 700,000, but sure, I'll list it for 850. And then maybe we'll have an uncomfortable conversation in a few weeks when you come to reality or whatever. I think that there's a lot of that going on because, like you said, Mark, there's all these sellers that have a sweet deal. They're not like being pushed out of an uncomfortable situation. If you look at just the average health, the financial health of a U.S. homeowner, and that's going to be exasperated in our market because our market's even healthier. We have more equity, et cetera. Your average homeowner, only 60% of homes actually have a mortgage. So 40%, 4 out of 10 people out there don't owe anything on their house. Okay. So that's one factor when you're potentially selling. You're like, well, it's not like I got the burden of this giant mortgage payment weighing on my decision of whether or not I'm going to accept your low ball offer or whatever. And then of the 60% that have mortgages, it's something like 80% of those have rates in like the 2 to 3% range. And, I can tell you as somebody that does have a 2-something% rate, I'm not all that excited to go out and get a 7-something% rate. Right. And so there is a lot of that, I think, playing a role in the sellers. How serious are they really? When the rubber meets the road, how serious are they about actually selling their house and accepting the reality of where interest rates are and all of that stuff? But ultimately, I agree with you. Like we say all the time, you got to time the market. You got to time your life, not time the market. Nobody can time the market. It's just, it's impossible. You're going to get one thing right and something else wrong. But if you're in a place in your life where your job's, solid, your income, all that stuff, and you're, you feel like you're ready, as long as you're not in that like short-term thinking of how long you're going to own this property for, I think that timing your life in this market is a good decision. You're ultimately, you had kind of kicked off this conversation with there's a lot of people that are saying, you know what, hey, I'm just going to continue to rent instead of buy, I'm going to wait for rates to come down. Well, I've got two things for those people. For one, remember that house that you think is overpriced right now at $850,000, well, you need to add 10% to it or 20% to it or whatever, depending on how long you're going to sit around waiting for interest rates to come down, because it's not like home prices are static. We've been seeing, nationwide average is 6% year over year up. But like I said, Sacramento, Folsom, El Dorado, all those, really hot markets, they're up to close to 20%. Like El Dorado Hills is 21% home price appreciation. So you've got that factor. And then also, while you are sitting on the sidelines and not owning real estate, that also means that you're not gaining equity. So a lot of the people that are buying houses that are not first-time home buyers that are coming in with these big down payments, well, where do you think they get the down payment from? It's from equity, and it's because they've been participating in the market. So if you are not going to participate in the market, what are you going to do with all of your disposable income? And the answer better be that you're saving every dime that you've got so that in the future, you've got a big war chest to purchase a home with. Because if you're just, using it all for Uber Eats and Starbucks or whatever, and you're just really sitting on the sidelines for lower rates, ultimately you're just going to pay a lot more in the future for what you could get today. That's my opinion on that.
All right, I like it. Okay, so I'm going to piggyback off what you said real quick, right? 2.75, there are a lot of sellers that are like pricing a little high. They're like, if we don't sell it, we don't sell it. Here's one of the things that's killing me. I talked to a couple realtors in various areas, and they're on the phone when we're getting ready to submit an offer. They're saying to me, Mark, it's a buyer's market. You know that. And I'm wondering if they failed math in high school, because 9 months of inventory is what you need on the market to actually be in a buyer's market, and it's completely just know who you're working with, guys. Here's the thing. A lot of situations are community specific and situation specific. Communities historically, like Land Park, like East Sacramento, certain community niche areas in those are still good, Grant Bay and all that, Los Lagos, yada yada. And situation specific, like trust sales and everything too. But in no way, shape, or form, if you do the math, can you honestly have a realtor tell you that it's a buyer's market? It is not. The math is not there. So if you talk to a realtor who's giving you the whole thing about, oh, it's a buyer's market, they don't know their pricing, they don't know the market. Run. Like I said, situation specific, community specific. I can go with that. As far as buyer's market, the math just isn't there. All right, so hopefully this helped you a little bit. So Aaron, for you, 2024, what do you think as far as a person buying a house now? What is your breakdown? Are they going to lose their shirts? Is this a good time to buy? What are you thinking? Sum it up.
I would say that as long as they're in a good position financially, then they're not going to lose their shirts. I think that they're going to do really well. And in fact, going into the future, I think that they'll continue to do well just based off of history. If Trump gets into office, and this isn't a political show, but if you just look at home price appreciation during his administration, it was 31% over those 4 years cumulatively. So, there's a lot of reasons to believe that home prices will be higher in the future.
All right. For me, I'm going to say this. First of all, time your life. Do not time the market. 2024, short term, tough. Flipping ain't easy. If you're going to do a short-term thing, you got to be a contractor or someone who is handy with your hands to be able to do some of this stuff, because the numbers just don't make a lot of sense. The long-term play, I would say that it's still there. Sacramento is a great area. I believe in it. I love the area. And if you're someone who's looking for a forever home, if you're someone who's looking for a home that you plan on staying in for 5 to 7 years, I still love Sacramento based on their job diversity, based on their growth potential, based on the California lifestyle, and best bang for your buck in California, in my opinion. I do think we're going to be heading into flat waters for a little bit now. And I do think, like I said, at the end of the day, I love our Sacramento real estate market. I definitely believe in it. And as far as you guys go, if you enjoy this video, if it helped you maybe a little bit on your decision for 2024, smash that like button, comment, subscribe. Until next time, guys, we're out of here. Okay, guys, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Like I said, buying in 2024 is completely up to you. Get educated, find a great realtor, and if you're looking for one, reach out to our team right there. And we got more videos for you. One over there. And please do not forget to hit that subscribe button over there. We're going to be dropping some more content about Sacramento's real estate market every single week. Until next video, guys, this is Mark. Have a good one.